Hi there, welcome to the YouTube channel. I'm back again and was carried on looking at some of the Edge of Eternity stuff. I am on holiday this week, so bear with me if some of these decks seem a little bit random, but today we're going to have a look at this one. And it is Tannuk, Steadfast second, 2 and double red for a 3/5 Cavu pilot. Gives all your other creatures haste, but the important bit is it gives all your artifact cards and red creatures in your hand have warp, 2 and a red. Now warp's a new alternate casting cost for creatures. Basically you can play the creature for all the artifact for its warp cost, and then at the end of your turn that gets exiled, goes to the exile zone. You can cast it again for its full mana cost at a later turn. Now I looked at this and I looked at some of the other warp cards because the full spoilers out as I'm recording this one, and I wasn't that impressed with any of the other warp cards. So if there is anything you think I've missed out in this deck, please let me know in the comments down below. Even though I'm on holiday, I'll still be checking them. So I've kind of ignored the rest of the Edge of Eternity's cards for this and really gone with my own thoughts. So here we go. Here's what today's deck really does look like. So at the beginning, 29 creatures. Reckless Fireweaver I thought was a bit of a no-brainer in this deck. We're going to be warping in all sorts of artifacts on the cheap, so we might as well get a little bit of damage in with the Reckless Fireweaver. The Molten Gatekeeper comes in for the same reason, but this does it when creatures enter the battlefield under our control, so a little bit more way of getting damage to our opponents. Red deck, Professional Facebreaker, you want the treasures, makes sense. And I've also played Enduring Courage. Now, this is a bit of an unusual one, I know. You really want to play this, you don't want to warp it in because it does give all your other creatures +2, +0 and haste, and it does become that nice enchantment when it dies off, so try and cast this one if you can. Solemn Sim in this deck is ridiculous. You pay it for its warp cost and then you get your land, and then hopefully you attack with it or it disappears back into the exile zone if you haven't got haste for it. And then you get to play it again from exile because you're entering the battlefield, you get another land, and then when it dies you get your card, so you know. It's expensive, 7 mana, 2 lands and a card draw and a 2/2 creature, maybe, but yeah, I thought it was quite good. Then we get to the creatures that we want to start thinking about warping in. So Gold Lush Triad to get those treasure tokens and the Myriad. Karlach, Fury of Avernus is also great. You get this in and you get your second attack step each turn. Don't forget the creatures you warp in don't go until your end step. So if you've warped them in and you get to untap with them, you get another attack with Karlach, which is fantastic. Obviously we're in red, so Terror of the Peaks had to be here along with Twin Flame Tyrant to double up on that damage. Clive, Ifrit's Dominant is also here. Now be careful Clive, if you're going to warp him in, you've got to make sure your devotion to red is worthwhile doing it. You don't want to be in a situation where you warp this in and the only devotion to red is you've got Clive and Tannuk, so you may be discarding 5 cards to draw 4. And it is a May effect, you don't have to do it, but it's probably worth doing it just to build your hand up again. Combustible Gearhog is just a great 6/6 first striker, which gives you either cards or someone takes a whole load of damage. And Ancient Copper Dragon, I've left it as the Dragon of Mount Gulg in here because I actually quite like the artwork on this one. But obviously this comes in and when it deals combat damage to a player, you roll a d20 and get those treasure tokens, which can be really nice. Atali, Primal Storm, yeah, well, that had to be here, so we're in with this. Hellkite Tyrant is also in. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, gain control of all artifacts that player controls, which kind of might ramp you up quite a bit. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 more artifacts, you win the game. Now, obviously, the second ability won't trigger because you've warped them in, but it might be a case of you can get it in a later game, and when you replay it, you might have the 20 artifacts, and if you keep the Hellkite Tyrant around, you'll probably win. From there, Holger, the Relentless Rager, is also in. Has haste automatically, so that's nice. Must be blocked each turn available. That's fine. You know, we'll probably lose our 4/6 a lot of the time, but whatever. But whenever Holger attacks, each creature you control gets +1/+0 until the end of the turn for each creature that player controls. It's quite nice when you hit it with the flyers, I have to say. You know. Anyway. Inferno of Titan is in just to deal that damage when it comes into play and when it attacks on the turn you warp it in. Keeper of Secrets is one you want to just play if you can and keep it in play, and then start casting your spells from exile to deal that extra damage to a target opponent, which is just lovely. Likewise, Nalfasheen is also here. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, copy it. Hello. All our spells when we warp and go to exile, and then we can play them from exile. Yeah, and we get a copy of it, and the copy gains haste, and Yeah, we then exile it. Bit of a no-brainer for me. Yeah, so get one of these and put in your deck. Overlord of the Boiler Barges is Bilges is here as well, just do that extra damage, and we can append it if we need to. Scourge of the Throne to give us that extra attack step if we attack some people with the most life. And because we're going to be warping things, they cast, and they do count as cast when they're warped. It says it in the thing, you may cast a card from your hand for its warp cost. You might get the Storm off and get a whole load of copies of the Storm Scale Sinian, so bear that in mind. Balefire Dragon just tucks around damage like no man's business, and Dragon Mage basically gives you a way to discard your hand and draw 7 new ones, which, yeah, is pretty good to be honest. From there, Drakaseth, More of the Flames is in. It comes in 7/7, and when it attacks, when you've warped it in, hopefully you've given it haste somehow. We've got ways of doing that. We're coming to them. The 10 damage you divide up, well, 4 and 2 lots of 3s to targets probably does mean your opponents go ouch. Mere Battle Spheres, nice. Also, you can warp this in for 3 mana, and you get your Mere tokens, which don't have warp, but they stay in place. You get those little 1/1 blockers, and then obviously you can attack with the Battle Sphere if you want to, or you can just let it go straight to exile, so you can do it again. You get another 4 Mere when you recast it from exile. Cityscape Leveler, when you cast this spell and whenever it attacks, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Yep, chuck around those Power Stones for free. And Myojin of the Roaring Blades. Yeah. Go to combat. Warp this in, attack, get your 7 in if you've given it haste somehow. Otherwise, you are basically going to take off the indestructible token and probably deal 7 damage to each of your opponents if you've got 3 of them. Or take out a really big annoying creature you would need to deal with. That's fine. Likewise, a bit of a random one. Artisan of Kozilek is in as well. Whenever you cast this spell, and Warp is cast, don't forget, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it has Annihilator too. So again, another one you want to make sure you've got haste on the board for. Yeah, Tannuk's in play, it gives him haste. I keep forgetting that, sorry. And then Cavern Horde Dragon is also here. Give us the, let's get all those treasure tokens for each artifact when we deal the damage. Can't remember Tannuk does haste. Yeah, that's my bad. Ignore anything I said about giving haste. Obviously, if you've got Tannuk in play and you're warping things in, all your creatures have haste. That's just me being silly this morning as I record this video. From there, we have sorceries. Rite of Flame, because we want to ramp up our mana as quick as we can. So, you know, one red for 2 red is fairly good going. Then we've got Winds of Change, just so we can shuffle our cards from our hand into our library and draw that many cards. We've got a handful of lands that are no use. Highway Robbery, discard a card, we draw some cards. We need to make sure we've still got cards in our hands so we can warp things in, hence why we've got a lot of these effects. So we've got that, we've got Tormenting Voice. From there, we go to Chain Reaction for some board control, Mana Geyser for even more mana, which is fantastic if you've got Tannuk in play and a whole handful of cards and all your opponents are tapped out. Yeah, that will give them a headache, believe me. And then Blasphemous Act if you really want to control the board big time. Instance, we have a lot of targeted removes. We've got Lightning Bolt and Abrade, then Battle Hymn for more mana, Desperate Ritual for more mana, Lightning Strike for a bit more targeted removal, Thrill of Possibility for the card draw, Chaos Warp to deal with that annoying permanent that's driving us mad, Seething Song for the real big mana push if we need it, Big Score for the card draw and the extra treasures, same with Unexpected Windfall. Okay, we're discarding cards to do these bits here, but you know, as you can expect, because we are discarding stuff, I've got Elixir of Immortality in the deck ready to shuffle everything back in for us. Then we've got the artifacts. Lava Spur Boots is here to protect Tannuk when we get there. Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Fire Diamond for the ramp along with Ruby Medallion. Boots protect Tannuk as well, and then Fire Crystal cuts the cost of all our red spells down. Now, I'm not 100% sure, I have to say this now, if Ruby Medallion and the Fire Crystal will reduce the warp costs. I don't know. Obviously, we haven't played this yet. My guess is probably because you are having a casting cost, so I think it works, but I may be wrong. If you're a judge and you know him better, please let me know in the comments down below. Conjurer's Closet's a bit of a strange one, but it does have an upside to it. If you stack your triggers right, you can exile out one of the creatures that's about to disappear and then return it onto play. If it gets it, it's being warped in, just comes back in as a creature. So it's a nice way of keeping some of your big things around if you need them to. We're in a mono deck, so Throne of Eldraine is here. Portal to Phyrexia is one of the artifacts we do want to warp in as soon as we can, just to basically control the board a bit more. And from there, we have our enchantments. So I did go with some other enchantments to give us haste. So we've got Fever, we've got Rising of the Day. I've also played Uncivil Unrest because I quite like giving our non-token creatures Riot for either the counter or the haste ability. So It's another way of getting haste quickly if we need it to. You know, it could be a case of you warp. You've got your warp creature on the stake. They kill Tannuk, but you've still got this there to do the haste. That's my theory anyway. Sunbird's Invocation is also in, just so we can get some extra value from the spells as we cast them, because they will look at the mana cost in the top right, not the warp cost. And then the Warstorm Surge is here, just so we can chuck around some more damage if we need to. The lands I kept very, very simple. All of the sack lands are in that we can go and fetch us mountains. And then we've got 28 mountains themselves to do that with. Nykthos is here. And down the bottom, there you go, Valakut's in as well. Just chuck around some damage once we get 5 or more mountains in play. And that's it. That's my take on Tannuk, the Steadfast second. I think it's going to be a great card. I mean, I've seen the pre-order price for this one card. I think it's sitting around, when I looked the other day, it was sitting around about $45, $50 already. So I think people are already thinking about this for all sorts of formats. So hopefully you open one of your pre-release and you'll be really happy. But there you go. That's my take. If there's anything you think I've missed, please let me know in the comments down below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button. Help me beat the YouTube algorithm. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow with another one from Edge of Eternity. So for now, goodbye. And yeah, I'm going off to enjoy my holiday. Have a good one. Bye.